Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Main, awesome wife and dog mom for life. I'm a sex therapist turned sex coach, and I run a successful business selling relationship enhancement products. I absolutely love talking about all things sex. So you can expect this podcast to explore all things related to women's sexual health because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you discover and embrace what brings you pleasure so that you can own your sexual self. If that sounds good to you, then keep listening and let's fucking do this. Check. Is this thing on? Welcome back, y'all. Happy 2022. Happy New Year, new you, new year, new you, whatever you want to focus on for 2022. Thank you for just rejoining me this year in our newest episodes of Owning Your Sexual Self. I'm super pumped for the transition that we are making this year on the podcast. If you go back and look at the last 2 years, I'm celebrating my second year, going into now my third year of the podcast. We started this in January of 2020, and it's been incredible. I literally cannot believe that it's already been 2 full years. So happy anniversary to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast officially. And I think the 4th was actually the true anniversary date. And I remember sitting in my living room in December of 2019. And this was a time where I was super, super sick. I actually think I had COVID before COVID was even a real thing, like before we even really knew about COVID in the US, because I remember being sick for so long. And that was one of the things that stood in my way of starting the podcast recordings. I didn't have a voice. I couldn't talk for a long period of time without coughing or anything like that. And I just remember hearing myself and literally that inner critic in my mind just beating myself up. I remember sitting on the couch and seeing on social media, scrolling social media and seeing other people doing all these amazing things and setting all these goals for the new year and just pursuing their dreams in life. And I just remember just beating myself up and wishing I wasn't sick, wishing I wasn't feeling like shit. I remember going to the doctor's office and literally breaking down in tears. That was my 3rd visit to the doctor's office. And I'm like, look, something is not right. I cannot breathe. My chest is hurting so bad. You need to send me for a chest x-ray. There's something seriously going on here. You know, it's been a month and I'm not any sort of better at all. And finally, I went for the chest x-ray. Nothing came up in the chest x-ray. I was all clear. Finally, something changed in my body and I started getting better. And I remember waking up one day and I was like, you know what? My voice is still hoarse. I still sound slightly masculine because I'm so stuffed up. And if you listen to the earlier episodes of the podcast, you'll hear the difference in my recording. When I recorded that intro, that's when I was still in that time of feeling like shit. And, I pushed through that pain. I pushed through that annoyance. I pushed through that motherfucking inner critic that we all have. And I did it anyways. And now here we are 2 years later. And that's the thing. It just took biting the bullet, right? Just doing it, just going in, choosing to do something that I knew was what I wanted to do in that time. And if you look back for the past 2 years of this podcast, you're going to notice that this is an amazing, amazing resource. Listening to this podcast, this is absolutely free to you that are listening. And if you're looking for information on desire, if you're looking for information on how to strengthen your relationship, all of my tools like 3-minute game, relationship regroup, want, will, won'ts, activities that you can do, communication tips, medical tips, right? Things like vaginal pain, things like pelvic floor dysfunction, sexual dysfunctions, tantric penis massages. I mean, we've had some incredible guests on this show. I've recorded some incredible episodes for you on the show that are just great resources for you in your sex life and your relationship life. So definitely you can see that the last 2 years, this podcast has become a great resource for people. And I love having this podcast because it's something that you can go back to and listen to. Some episodes that might come up on a weekly basis for you, they might not be something that make a difference in your life right now. But hey, we go through major life changes every 6 months. And so being able to have access to this really for your lifetime, it's not going away as far as I know anytime soon. So having access to this to be able to go back and look at the episodes, share episodes with friends, family, coworkers, when conversations are arising in your life and somebody's maybe sharing with you that they have pain during sex or they're not sure what kind of lubricant to use, you're like, hey, I know a girl. I know a podcast. I'm going to send it to you. Just last night, actually, Danny came home from bowling and he's like, so you're not going to get this. You're not going to believe this, rather. Me and the guys were talking after bowling and podcast came up and I shared with them, hey, my wife has a podcast. And they're like, oh, really? Like, what is it about? And I would love to have heard that conversation of how Danny described my podcast to them. But he came home, he's like, yeah, the guys were really into it. Like they are all going to probably start listening to it now. So shout out to the bowling dudes if you're one of them listening to this right now, since this episode will come out just a few days after you had that conversation with my husband. Welcome to the podcast. And, again, for those of you that have been long-term listeners, sharing is caring. This again is a great resource. So anyways, so you're going to see a transition in the podcast going into this year. So this year, I'm a very structured, systematic person. If any of my other fellow type A peeps are out there, hello, I see you, I hear you, I feel you. And I'm really, really, really trying to do things different this year. I'm trying to focus more so on a path and doing things that I feel connected to in that moment. Last year for 2021, I had the entire podcast content planned out for the entire year. I knew every single week, every single Monday, what episode I was going to be putting out. I knew to record it ahead of time. Like, it was so structured. It was crazy. And that works really well for me. However, now that I'm making this transition and I'm working to, again, just be more in my feelings, be more in tune with my body and work on the things that I'm feeling inspired to work on in that moment, that's what you're going to see through more so on this podcast. So you're going to see a transition. It's not so much going to be those educational, resourceful things every week. Yes, I'll still sprinkle that in there, of course, but you're going to notice that it's going to be more conversational. You're going to notice that I'm going to be sharing more stories about my life, what's going on in our marriage and our relationship, which is also, I want to add, a super, super exciting time for us. I'm just finishing up coaching with one of my business coaches that I've been working with for the past year and a half. And the amount of things that I have learned in terms of sex and relationships and intimacy and connection and all of that, the amount of things that I've learned is like this whole arsenal of tools that I have now and things that I want to try and implement and bring into our marriage. So you're going to hear me talking about those things. You're going to hear the struggles that Danny and I are going to face throughout this year, because while a lot of people might think that our marriage is this cookie cutter perfect, thing, it's not. Every marriage has its struggles. Every marriage has its challenges, and one of my standards that I want to continue to live up to with you this year is being genuine, is being transparent and being authentic and sharing the real life shit that is going on in my life, in our life. And so I'm excited for that. It feels scary for sure, being that vulnerable and sharing that intimate part of our life on such a worldwide platform is scary. And, some people may not like that. You may choose to not listen to this podcast anymore, and that is okay. However, I know that there's so many people out there that follow me and are inspired by me and the content that I produce because it is relatable. Just as anybody that's out there that is also married or also in a long-term relationship, also choosing to not have children, also choosing to kickstart their sex life, get more in tune with their self. I mean, these are all things that I can relate to because I'm going through the things myself. We as a couple are going through these things ourselves. So to be able to provide those real life stories, those real life perspectives to you, again, it's just something that I'm really excited about. So This episode today, I want to focus specifically on COVID. As I was just sharing earlier, the story COVID, when I was super sick that December of 2019, when I kind of had put my podcast on hold, I knew I wanted to launch in January. However, I planned to have, content pre-recorded ahead of time, which didn't happen because of basically, I'm going to call it COVID. I think I had COVID before COVID was even a thing that we knew about. And that was a time where I hadn't dove deep into my sexual journey yet. Yes, I was on that self-pleasure journey and all of that, but as a couple, we hadn't really, we had not done half of the things that we've done in the past year and a half. Not even so much sexually, just like activity based, like going through things like the relationship regroup, having conscious conversations about our relationship, about our marriage, about our sex life, particularly, and planning those things and making sure that we are making the time for those things, doing things like the want, will, won't exercise that's available on my website. That this was before all of that. And so that was a time that there was no sex happening. There was no making COVID sexy. There was not any of that. In fact, Danny was still working a full-time job at that time. And so we really had to stay clear from each other, essentially. We had to make sure that, he wasn't going to get sick because he still had to work. He worked in FedEx at the time. And so he was around people and blah, blah, blah. So now that we have really, 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 again, gotten in tune with our marriage, we're doing that relationship regroup on a weekly basis. Sometimes I'll say, when we did it this past week, we literally did it in the bathtub. You've heard me talk about this before. Taking a bath together is one of my favorite, I think both of our favorite types of date nights that we can do in home. And again, it's that time that we can both be unplugged. We are grateful enough to have a bathtub that both of us can fit in. My husband, Danny, is 6'2", if you didn't know. I'm 5 foot exactly. So the fact that both of us can fit in that tub together is amazing. And it's a jetted tub. So it is, the relaxation that comes from those experiences are very, very nice. But it's also our time that we become unplugged. We don't take our phones in there. We make sure we keep our phones in the bedroom, and we could literally spend hours in there, and hours pass by and we're like, holy shit, okay, it's been 3 hours. Like we can get out now, we're so pruned up. It's time to go. And I'm going to say sometimes does sex happen in there? Do oral favors happen in there? Do other fun things happen in there? Yeah. Sure. We've had our hot, steamy bathtub makeout sessions. We've had our sex sessions. We've done many fun things in there together. And then there's other times that we don't do those things. And, going into the bath time itself, we typically don't set an intention for what that's going to look like. We just, go with the flow, really. Go with the hot tub flow. So anyways, this goes to say that, this last time, so we are just getting over COVID here. I tested positive for COVID the day before Christmas Eve, which was very, very, very disheartening. I just remember crying and just being so upset that we were missing that time with family and friends. And we had so many things planned. We were hosting multiple events here at our house that we had to cancel and reschedule. And it was super sad. For both of us, because obviously he had been around me. So it was just a matter of time before he was going to get sick as well, which he did. So what the kind of cool part about it was, again, if you're looking for kind of the blessing in disguise, is that we did have COVID both together at the same time. And if you're thinking, didn't you already have COVID? Because I got asked this a lot. Yes, we both tested positive for COVID in April. At that time, we were both asymptomatic. And then, so yes, this technically is our second official time of having COVID, actually testing positive for COVID. Again, I think I had it in December 19, before COVID was a thing, but neither here nor there. This time was a very different experience for us. When we had it back in April, and again, the topic of this episode is making COVID sexy. When we had it back in April, Danny was still working full time at that time. So he had to take off work, obviously, because he tested positive. Even though he had no symptoms, he still had to take those 10 days off of work. And so having our time during COVID in that era of our life, that was an amazing, amazing time for us to be able to connect. Definitely more sexually. This was also a time where we really started to try new things, and I started to share the things that I was learning throughout my own sex coaching with him and try to implement these things. So this was just such a different time because we were feeling good, right? We were still feeling healthy. So we were able to put the focus in re-landscaping our backyard. We were able to get things done around the house. We were able to work out together. I mean, we had all day, every day together. And this also was at the same time that the reason why we even got tested in the first place is because we had to get tested for a vacation that we were going to the Bahamas in a few days. So that vacation got canceled, which was also very, very devastating. I swear COVID came at the worst times for both times it came, it was literally the worst times possible. So during that experience, having COVID back in April and being asymptomatic, that was a time that we could really see what our life would look like when when our dream life was happening. That time, feeling healthy, but having that time to literally live out your days however you wanted was so monumental for us in the year of 2021, because that was the first time that Danny was able to have a full a 24-hour time schedule. He was able to live his life and live his days exactly as he wanted to. We could have took that time to sleep in all day. We could have took that time to just be lazy. And of course we had our lazy days, but for the most part, it was incredible. We were both waking up at the same time every day. We were getting in our routine, both working out first thing in the morning. We were able to meal plan better. I mean, it was great. We had no other commitments in life. It was truly wonderful. And I remember having a conversation maybe a month after that point of our life, and we were sitting down and we were talking about our goals and our dream life and kind of what we want life to look like moving forward in our marriage. And that's the time that he brought up. That was the time that he shared that this is the type of life that he wants to live. He wants to live that life where he can do what he wants with his days. He can work when he wants to. He can live, sort of that same lifestyle that I've been living for the past several years, which in addition is everything that I've also wanted for him, which was incredible because, we can always have our dreams and hopes for our partners and things that we want for them. But when you can hear from them in their own words that they want those same things and you want the same things for each other and those things align, that is truly, truly powerful. And I loved hearing that for him. And so for the next months leading into that is a huge point. We really worked together to try to make that a reality, try to make that lifestyle reality, in which, he was able to leave his job at the end of October and become a full-time entrepreneur. So he's got many things in the works that I'll save that for another episode. But my husband, gosh, I love you so much, babe, if you're listening to this. He has so many things in the works that he is pursuing this year. 2022 is going to be an amazing year for the both of us because we are literally both in the mindset and in the lane that we can now truly do the things that bring us happiness, the things that bring us joy. They say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And we are both now on that path. And so it's truly been amazing. So again, making COVID sexy. That time in April, we were able to connect with each other. We were still feeling healthy, but we had that time set aside again with no commitments. And now looking forward, when we got back to regular life, we now still make time. We still carve out time in our weeks. And that's one of the beauties of the relationship regroup. We carve out this time throughout our weeks to make sure that we are setting aside that time for intimacy. And sometimes we plan what we're going to do during that time. If it's sexploration, maybe it might be sexploration, but maybe it might be something specific that we want to sexually explore. Maybe it is scheduling our bath times out. Maybe it is a date night, and so that looks different each and every week based on where we're at in our marriage and what kind of else we have going on in our life. So when you fast forward to now this last time, these past weeks that we've had COVID, it looked much, much different, right? It looked so much different. We're at a different point in our marriage, and we're at this point and it's been something so crazy. We recently took a psychedelic trip together, which, don't worry, I have an episode coming up on my psychedelic experiences. I've taken 3 now. So the last 2 Danny and I have done together here at home. And there's been a transition since doing that together. The just and I think it's a transition of one, spending more time together. We're basically home 24/7 now together, aside from our times that we have obligations outside of the house. But for the most part, we're both working from home right now, and have been for the last 2 months. So when we in this time when we were in this psychedelic trip, there's just this different level of caring that we have for each other. The first time we did it, I had one experience under my belt. He had not had any experiences under his belt. And so it was really that role where I was in that caregiver role. I wanted to make sure that he was taken care of and that he had a good experience throughout this time together. And then in the second role, we were kind of on the same playing field at that point. And so it was just, it's so sweet. It literally almost brings me to tears. And this is something that, after each experience, we kind of just talk about it afterwards and share what came up for us. And that was one of the points that I brought up. It's like this level of caring for each other that we have in our marriage. And I wholeheartedly feel like that was created from starting to do this relationship regroup consistently, because it has opened up just a whole different insight for Danny. He is getting a little bit more woo with me, which, whenever I bring up woo stuff, he always goes, woo, to make fun of me, which is fine. But he is also tapping into that side of himself, which he is becoming more in tune with himself as well, and really just doing that soul searching and asking himself that question of what does he want for his life? What things does he want to change for his life? What goals is he working towards? What dreams does he have? And it's been just so exciting to see us go through that transition in our marriage, because now, this has been something that I've been doing for years and years and years. But now the fact that both of us are doing that together, there's, again, just this different level of caring that we have for each other in our marriage. And so when we both got COVID together, of course, at first, I had tested positive. He was waiting out in the truck for me and came out and, shared positive. Plans are ruined. Tears happened. Frustrations happened. And from there, it was like, we know we're going to go through this together. What the hell is our next week going to look like? So we had to start putting those plans in place of rescheduling things, reaching out to people that we needed to reach out to. And from there, it was just a time that, again, everything was taken off of our calendar. Essentially we were quarantined. We knew the next 10 days we were going to be home 24/7. We weren't going to leave. We need to make sure we planned. And just how well we were able to literally just pull together and articulate that plan, that day, because again, we knew this is what fate has for us, 10 days. So we were able to get together, we were able to meal plan, we were able to still schedule out those times, and work through the things that we wanted to get done. As we knew those first couple days or those next few days were going to be pretty much hell, and we didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, but making sure that we had the discussion. We're obviously not going to set an alarm. We're going to allow our bodies to get the rest that it needs. We're going to not get down on ourselves for binge watching a shit ton of stuff on TV, right? If we feel motivated to work and get stuff done, we're going to do those things, but we're not going to get down on each other if we are tapping into a little bit more of that lazy side, because again, that's what our bodies needed in that time. We needed to heal. We needed to get better. And I feel so much for the couples. There's so many people have reached out to us on social media after seeing that we were going through this, and one partner had COVID and they were kind of quarantining from their family. And I feel so awful for those people. I remember one woman specifically, she's like, yeah, I've been locked up in my bedroom, away from my daughter, away from my husband, and it's been terrible. I can hear my child crying out for me, and I can hear my husband kind of struggling to kind of do things on his own, and just keep our family going. And I'm sure, obviously I can't relate to that handedly, but that has to be heart-wrenching, to have to quarantine away from the people that you love the most in your life. Not only is that difficult, I think, to do, when you're all under the same roof, but just an emotional level, just very, very sad. When I had started feeling crappy on Wednesday, I had scheduled the appointment to go get tested the next morning. Danny wasn't feeling, he had no symptoms at that time. It wasn't until later in the day, Thursday, after I was getting tested, that he then started having some similar symptoms. So I was essentially a day ahead of him. And so we knew it, the inevitable was happening. We knew that we both had COVID. We had the same symptoms. And so what I want to say during this time, yes, we honored that for ourselves to take the time to rest, take the time to talk through our plans and what we wanted that 10 days to look like. And aside from the rest time that we scheduled in and allowed ourselves to indulge in, there were also other things that we wanted to get done. He had an exam coming up that he wanted to make sure that he was still prepared for. Together, there were things in our house that we wanted to do and the kind that we planned to do in that last 2 weeks, your winter break, basically, which a lot of people refer to that time as. There was shit that we wanted to get done. We wanted to organize some closets in our house. We wanted to clean some things. We wanted to, what else did we do? We cleaned out our junk drawer. I cleaned out my office closet. I wanted to clean out the front closet. He cleaned out, hit some spaces in that he only works in, But aside from that, we also made time to have that sexy, intimate time. So even though we were binge watching, and all wrapped up on the couches, we made sure that we were still doing those things together. I remember the first few days we avoided kissing because we weren't really sure what was happening, and we didn't want to just keep passing it back and forth. And I remember laying in bed one night and I was like, we were spooning. That's usually how we fall asleep. I am the little spoon. He is the big spoon. In case anybody was wondering. And then the dogs are like the 2 teaspoons scattered around us somewhere. But anyways, I remember laying there and, with my back facing towards him and cuddling there. And I just remember like saying to him, I can't wait to kiss you again. And this was very early in our 10 days. And he's like, I know I miss you already. Even though we were there together, we were with each other, there's still that level of missing each other on the more intimate piece. And so I remember saying that and just, again, feeling all in the feels, and the sadness around kind of what was coming up for us in the next 10 days. So then moving forward, we go through the shit of it. We go through just feeling like crap. We go through the fevers, we go through the chills, we go through all of that. And we were able to honor for both of ourselves that alone time that we needed, but also able to honor that feeling, that longing for each other, and still making the time to cuddle and just enjoy each other's company on a deeper level. And while we did not have sex, I think for the first, I want to say at least the first 7 days, it came down to a point where we were finally feeling a little bit better. And we decided to take a bath together, mostly because we were both super congested and we wanted that steam. We wanted that experience. And I remember sitting in the bath and again, we had not had sex for about a week at this point. And we both, first of all, it was a CBD bath that we were taking. So already your level of relaxation and zen is just like on 100%. And I remember we were both just like literally so spaced out, like just staring off in space, not at each other, just randomly staring at something in the room. And I looked at him like, what are you thinking about? And he's like, I'm literally thinking about having sex. And I was like, oh my God, me too. It was so funny. Literally, both of us were so like spaced out, having our own sort of fantasies. Because again, we were longing for each other. Again, we were together. We had been with each other, but we hadn't been with each other on that deeper level. And that's something that's pretty regular in our relationship. And so we had a nice giggle about that. And then, to have this level of confidence in our marriage, to then take it a bit further. And I asked him, what were you thinking about specifically? Like, what kind of fantasy were you having going on over there? And, he was able to go into detail about his fantasy and then ask me the same. What were you thinking about yours? And I answered. And then the beauty of that is like, okay, let's do that. Like, we're both on the same page. And I remember saying, I literally don't even know how my body is going to handle an orgasm right now, because we're still so fatigued, again, in the bath, still in that whole deep relaxation state. But I'm like, well, we'll see. Right? We'll see, And so we were able to enjoy each other's company on a more intimate level during that time. And it was great. It was great to be able to communicate with each other. It was fun and sexy to be able to listen to each other's fantasies and have that power within ourselves to be able to share the fantasies with each other and then to be able to act on them in that moment. I think that was something super, super hot that we were able to do. And so then moving on, so we realize like, okay, our bodies can enjoy orgasms right now. We must be getting somewhat better because I don't want to die after my body just went through this. In fact, I felt a little bit better. I got a little bit more energy under my belt. So as the days went on, we were able to create more. And when we sat down to do our relationship regroup the next time for that upcoming week, we were able to then realize, okay, it's time that we can start getting more intimacy type things on our schedule. We can start getting back into the groove of things and getting back to where we were. So that all goes to say that, again, we were in a unique position that we were both quarantining together. We weren't in a position where we had to quarantine away from each other. We both had it and we both wanted to make the best of it. And now we are out of it. We were able to finally get out of the house this week, and it feels great to get out and back in the world. And it feels great to get back on our schedules. So that has been our life. That has been our COVID life the last few weeks. Again, that was like December 22nd and through January 3rd, essentially, we were in quarantine. So it feels good to be out in a world that is just something that we missed. We miss our friends. We miss our family. We're excited to be doing our holiday redos this weekend and just get out there and have some fun and get back to the intimacy that we long for in our relationship. So in conclusion, COVID can be sexy. It can be sexy however that looks for you. It doesn't have to be, sex type of sexy. It can be cuddle type of sexy. It can be conversation type of sexy. It can be talking about fantasies type of sexy. And all that goes to point you back in the direction of the relationship regroup. Like I said, I fully attribute a lot of what we experienced over the last 2 weeks to that regroup because we had been doing it consistently already. We still kept it as a part of our routine. Again, it wasn't so much, and it doesn't have to be every week. It doesn't have to be this big, production where you have to sit down and you have your planners and things like that. You can do it like we did one of the times in the bathtub, and we just did that check-in. How did you feel loved by me? How are you feeling right now? How can I support you this week? What are the things that we want to get done this week? What is our focus? What can we do better at this week? Those types of questions. And it just allows you to stay present in your relationship. It gives you that space to have those conversations with each other. If you are the couple that sits down and you're like, I don't know what to talk about. How you doing? You're right. And each of you are just like, good. Yep, I'm doing good. If that's you, I would urge you to go to my website, go to rachelmaine.com, go to the resources tab, and download this relationship regroup. It is free to you. There is no cost to you. Download the relationship regroup. Start to implement this into your life. Like I mentioned, we do ours on Sundays. If Mondays work for you, whatever day works for you, but it gives you that time once a week to sit down and have conversations with each other. Literally carve out and plan the life that you want, both on an intimate level, a personal level, a social level, a financial level. I mean, everything really is covered in this thing. So anyways, thank you all for your love and your wishes on our health these last few weeks. That's been super nice to be able to get all those messages from everybody. So thank you. I hope you are going to enjoy this shift in the podcast. I will be talking later this month about the women's circles that I've been doing. That's something I've been getting a ton of messages about as well. So I'll be having conversations around the women's circles. I'm going to have some conversations around just our life again and the fun things that we are implementing. So all right. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a thing. And if you loved it so fucking much, be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'll see you next week, and until then, keep owning your sexual self.